So, salary negotiation. I mean, why is this so important? Why are we even talking about this, right? Well, it's been kind of a hot topic in the media lately, actually, with all the pay equality discussions that have been going on. And it turns out that women get paid 77 cents for every dollar that men make, which sucks. Why is this? Well, it's complicated, right? Like, I could go into a lot of reasons. I'll save some of that for my feminist Twitter rants, which you can observe at PDX Tech Girl if you want to get involved with those. But one of the reasons is because, and a lot of studies have been done on this, women actually tend to negotiate less than men do when it comes to salary negotiations. And the reason I want to focus on that today is because that's something that we can change. Right? We can do something about that and start negotiating and start to close that gap in the salary difference, right? So that we're not making only 77 cents for every dollar that men make, which is ridiculous. So let's talk about this a little bit. If I can get my slide to advance. It hates me. Okay, there we go. It likes me again. Okay. Okay, why don't women negotiate? I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? Like, why don't they just ask for what they're worth? Why don't we do this more? Well, again, it's complicated, but when you think about the qualities that our society values in men versus the qualities that our society values in women, there's a big disconnect there. So the things that we value in men culturally are being more assertive, being aggressive, being a leader, speaking your mind. And the things that are valued in women are more like being nice and being pretty and being polite and being agreeable. And those things don't really mesh well with negotiation. So the problem is when a man negotiates, he's viewed as likable and powerful, and he's a guy you want to work with. But if a woman negotiates in the exact same way, she's viewed as unlikable and, well, I don't want to work with her, and she seems like a total bitch. Seriously. Like, and even women do this to each other because it's just this cultural undertone of expectations. So I think what happens a lot of the time is we're all aware of these cultural expectations, and as women we know, well, I'm not going to be very likable if I negotiate or if I exhibit some of these behaviors. We don't want to be viewed as this, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, you have to get over it, because you have to stand up for your worth. And the way that you want to approach it, like Rita Marie said, is you want to be polite and you want to be grateful, but you also need to be firm about what you're worth, what you bring to the table, and what you deserve. And that's okay. I grew up with a mom who watched a lot of Oprah. So I watched a lot of Oprah as a kid. And one thing that I remember seeing a lot on Oprah was she would always talk about how you train people to treat you a certain way, right? You train them how to treat you. And you touched on this a little bit, Rita Marie, and I actually think you pointed this out, but when you negotiate on your salary, when you get a job offer, you're setting a precedent as someone who is going to stand up for your worth and who isn't going to let people push you around. And I think that's very important, not just for negotiating that initial salary, but for setting the right tone of how you want to be treated and what you deserve. So try not to focus on this. Get it out of your mind, don't worry about it, and instead focus on this, which is what you were just talking about, how good it feels when you get a higher salary because you negotiated, and it feels really good. I mean, even if it's just a little bit higher, it's just this emotional, psychological high, knowing that you got something that was more in line with what you deserve and what you're worth. And you do deserve it, but you have to ask for it. If you don't ask, the answer is always no, like you said, right? So try not to focus on the fact that you're going to look kind of bitchy sometimes, which is just going to happen even if you negotiate in a polite and positive way, and focus on how excited you're going to be when you get what you're worth. So I know it's still kind of intimidating, and I have so many clients that don't want to negotiate on a job offer, even if it's not aligned to what they expected to get based on all the research they did. And men too. I mean, men get uncomfortable with this stuff too sometimes, because it's an uncomfortable conversation, right? It's awkward, and we don't want to have uncomfortable conversations because it's just kind of icky. But if you don't have uncomfortable conversations, you don't get what you deserve, because people aren't just going to give it to you. And if that's not enough to convince you, I want to go through a quick scenario of what it will cost you to not negotiate. So I took this from the Harvard Business Journal, and I also saw this in a presentation on negotiation recently by Shannon Heim from Elemental, and I thought it was a great example. So let's just say two 30-year-olds received the exact same job offer for $70,000 a year. Okay? A man and a woman. And the woman decides, well, that's pretty close to what I think I would want to get paid, and that seems like a pretty good offer, and I'm just going to accept the offer as is, and I'm not going to negotiate. And the man decides, let's just say, I'm going to negotiate a little bit, and maybe he goes back and forth with the recruiter, the HR manager, and he ends up getting $78K a year. Well, you may think, well, you know, $8,000 a year, like $70,000 is a pretty good salary. Like, maybe I would be happy with that. But I want you guys to understand how much this could potentially cost you. So if you assume that both of these people receive a 3% raise every year throughout the rest of their career until they retire at the age of 65, this is what happens. So I know this is a little bit hard to read on this screen, and I apologize for that, but what I'm trying to show you is that the gap between what the woman makes and what the man makes grows every year, okay? That gap is widening as they move further and further in their career because of that salary differential at the beginning. And by the end, when they're ready to retire at age 65, it's not an $8,000 gap, it's over $22,000. And that's a lot. And you may think, well, they're both making close to $200,000 a year. That seems pretty great. Who cares? You know, I don't need the $22,000 a year. But if you think about investing that money, that extra money every year, and how much that would make you, it actually comes out to being close to $1 million by the end of your career. If you were to take that extra money every year, if the man were to take that extra money every year and invest it and get a rate of return somewhere between 3% and 5%, it comes out to right around $1 million. That is a lot of money to leave on the table in your lifetime. I don't know about you, but I'm not comfortable with leaving $1 million on the table. And I hope you're not either. So I hope I've convinced you that negotiating is something you have to do for yourself. And you know, Rita Marie pointed out that there will be some employers that will be put off by negotiation, but I think if you do your research and you come at them with a reasonable request and you approach them politely, I think it's unlikely that they're going to pull the offer off the table. And if they do, maybe that's not a place you want to work anyway.